Welcome to Brother Theory Part 2. This is your warning that there are Onyx Storm spoilers ahead. Who is the new brother? Is it Garrick? Is it Auric? Is it Riddick? Maybe Liam's back from the dead. There are so many possibilities. Or are there? And I could never guess that my enthusiasm and excitement for the conclusion that I arrived at would result in accusations of clickbait, rage bait, and that I lacked basic reading comprehension skills. But I am not taking it to heart. That was not my intent. So please allow me to explain why I still see all of these in-text clues as pointing to King Courland or someone like Courland as being the new brother. First, I need to make absolutely clear that my brother theory hinges upon interpreting what the book says through a polysemic lens. And this applies to even what Rebecca Yarros has said in interviews, specifically the one with Fantasy Fangirls podcast. So polysemic, multiple meanings. Rebecca has made it abundantly clear that she regularly uses double meanings and cryptic comments throughout the books, only for those puzzle pieces to fall into place at a later time for us. So what is an example of a polysemic phrase? Let me use chapter 65 as an example. Xaden's POV, watching me stumble and fall over the last 5 months. That can also be read as watching me stumble and fall about the last 5 months. We're arguing over theories. We're arguing about theories. Do you see what I mean? There's multiple meanings in that phrase. The 5 months is an illusion. It doesn't have to be taken literally that someone was physically at Xaden's side watching him for 5 months struggle. But moving on, I want to set the stage for the chaos that happens at the end of the book, because there are other parties at play here trying to capitalize. Chapter 26, Violet says, they speak in double meanings only when it's convenient to them. They value status, wealth, knowledge, and secrets. She's talking about Deverelli and Courtland's court. Xaden says to Courland, I'm assuming with our deal, trade would begin again, which would be mutually beneficial since I'm sure you've heard we're in a war with the Venin. Courland says, oh, we've never involved ourselves with Venin. He's not saying that he wouldn't consider it. He's just saying that historically, they have not been involved with the Venin. Courland goes on to say war destroys isles, blocks economies, supplying those at war, however, that's where the money is. We remain neutral in all things and always have. It's how we maintain trade, commerce, growth, and knowledge for the world, no matter what god you worship or magic you can access. What Courland just said is very suspicious. He basically is saying he doesn't care if you're Venin or a Griffin Flyer or a Dragon Rider. He treats them all equally in benefiting him and his kingdom. Chapter 27, all hell breaks loose at his dinner. Trade talks break down because Halden is a dumbass, and Courland orders his guards to kill everyone but Takaris. Fighting breaks out, and something interesting happens twice in this scene, where Deverelli illustrates their ignorance and lack of knowledge around how the Dragon Rider bond works. A guard says, do your dragons scream before they die, Firebringer? Does it take them minutes to perish after you do, or is it instant? And then Courland later says, stop playing and end this. It's the only way to kill their mounts. Okay, so they're both under the understanding that the bond works like the Griffin Flyers, that if you kill one, the other automatically dies. It's right after this that Xaden decides they're all fucking dead. His words. So remember him saying that when you go back and read chapter 65 again. But here's the interesting part. Violet says to Courland, you should know that dragons outlive their riders. So had you succeeded in killing us, all you would have done was really piss them off before they scorched everything in their paths and flew back to tell the rest of the Empyrean what you'd done. Why she's giving Courland this knowledge of how the Dragon Rider bond works and what the dragons would do, I don't know. But I think this plays a huge factor in the chaos that happens at the end of the book. Then we see Violet give Courland eggshells, which he is not wowed by until he learns that they are irid eggshells and they feel the magic emanating off the eggshells. It draws Courland in, it piques his interest. Courland is very much interested in gaining more power. And then in the very final paragraph of that scene, Courland makes sure to confirm with Xaden that their next stop is going to be Umbriel. Quote, you will begin at Umbriel, will you not? It is the closest main isle after all. Courland waits for me to nod, then eyes Andarna's shell before stepping around the table toward me. Courland was aware of their movements, and we learned from Xaden and Violet's subsequent trips through the Isles to Umbriel and Hedotus that Courland was aware of them traveling there. So in a way, he did see what they were doing. I am not convinced that after Xaden killed 12 guards in like an instant that Courland couldn't put 2 and 2 together. He's not an idiot. I think he totally noticed that Xaden is Venin. He operates in secrets. He's going to do whatever serves him ultimately. But fast forward a little bit, chapter 29, they return to home base at Bisgayeth, and then they set off for Umbriel like they told Courland they were going to do. Violet observes ships off the coast of Deverelli. Taryn says to Andarna, do not lose altitude. There is no telling what weaponry arms the merchant vessels beneath us. I have an inkling what that weaponry might entail, and we see it described in chapter 64. A massive net with weights the size of desks attached along the edges. These things are enormous. Who put them there? Who set them? Where did they come from? The sequence of events that Rebecca Yarros is weaving in, nothing is coincidental. All of this is for a reason. So fast forward, Xaden stumbles and falls through the rest of the Isles. Violet has to save him when he's on his back in Umbriel during his fighting match, and then she's supporting him through his mom drama in Hedotus. But in Unreal, Arik said something really interesting, because this is when Arik tried to volunteer himself to fight. Xaden stops him and says, "No, you are not your father nor your brother, which is precisely why you will not fight. We need you to live. Your kingdom needs you to live." Arik says, "Same could be said for you." Xaden literally just said, "You are not your father, you are not your brother, and your kingdom needs you." If there's one thing that I have learned in this book, it's pay attention when Arik is speaking. After that fight match, Violet is still trying to get Queen Marlis's alliance. And Violet says, "So you won't fight with us?" Queen Marlis says, "I think I prefer a Deverelli approach to an alliance for now." Violet asks, "What do you want?" Queen Marlis says, "The same thing everyone in the Isles craves, dragons." I'm sensing a theme here. But fast forward to chapter 65, and Xaden says, "Every single person in this fucking canyon will die before they remove a single one of her scales." To me, that tone indicates that he could give two shits for anyone that's in that canyon, that whoever is there right now, he does not particularly like. A little later in chapter 65, I glance past Berwyn, past Sigale, and the Venin to my new brother and the unconscious dragon lying in the valley beyond the canyon, guarded by 7 wyvern. How could he do this? Choose this after watching me stumble and fall over the last 5 months? How could he willingly walk the path I fought like hell to leave? He's the last person I ever would have expected to turn, and yet here we are. That whole paragraph can be interpreted that Xaden doesn't know why the king of a kingdom would ever want to turn Venin, when Xaden has struggled with having to rule Tyrrendor effectively as a Venin. Chapter 65, Xaden, "I skim past the one who now thinks himself my brother." The way that's worded means this person didn't consider themselves a brother to Xaden before. That does not apply to Garrick or Bodhi. End of chapter 65, Xaden and Sigale are airborne in less than a minute. We know that the dragon was unconscious and Berwyn and the other brother. I feel like if Xaden cared about this person, he would have taken them with him. Or I don't know, taking the time to rouse the dragon. And I don't see Sigale being open to carrying someone for him, especially someone that turned Venin. But chapter 66, this is the very telling part to me. Brennan is given a report. It says, "We still have 5 riders missing. 4 now," he adds, looking at me, "but after that display, we all know Ryerson did this. I bet the other 3 are already dead." I'm assuming that the 5 up until that point had been Violet, Xaden, Garrick, Bodhi, and Arik, perhaps. But note the wording of that report. They reported the riders were missing, not the dragons. And right before that, they had just reported 4 riders, their dragons, had been killed. Why would they explicitly state the 4 riders and their dragons in that paragraph, and then here just say 5 riders are missing and say nothing about the dragons? So who was the rando dragon in the canyon? We also learn that there were 3 elder dragons killed and 6 eggs were stolen. I have a hard time believing that Violet and Squad would steal those eggs and trade them away for the sake of an alliance. She respects the dragons more than that. So there would have to be a more compelling reason than just trading them for an alliance. But as we've seen this running theme with these kingdoms in the Isles, and particularly Courland's fixation with power and secrets and using that knowledge for his gain, it is not outside the realm of possibility that they would want to steal these eggs and use this battle that happened around Drathis as their in to potentially steal these eggs, and elder dragons get killed in the process, and using these massive nets to capture other dragons with this newfound knowledge that they have about bonded dragons. All of that to say, I personally don't think that it makes sense that Bodhi, Arik, Garrick, anyone from Quest Squad would jeopardize their signets and dragons and their very own, like their personal agency to turn Venin. We've learned that magic has a balance in this series, and Arik is our only precog. We get flashes that someone is a precog on the other side, someone beyond just Melgren with seeing battles, unless Melgren is lying about that or hiding that. It doesn't make sense that they would give up that power for the other side. And we know that Venin operate with hive mind, so it seems highly illogical that any of them on the Quest Squad would just jeopardize the war like that. Turning Venin effectively gives whoever's up top access to your mind, unless you have something special like Xaden does with his bond with Violet and the devout kind of love that he has for her. In Iron Flame chapter 52, the Venin that Violet is watching talk to Xaden says, "Usually jealousy sways the tongue of young wielders, the rest turn for power." Xaden turned for love, a very remarkable level of love, and it just does not fit with Garrick or Bodhi as much as they love Xaden. I mean, they're already treated like a brother. This is why I don't think it makes sense at all. And just the tone that Xaden thinks about these people that are at the canyon at the end of the book. So I've said my piece. I've offered another narrative for what's happening at the end with this fixation on magic and dragon eggs and dragons. So we will see what happens in the next book in a couple years. Thanks for listening.